Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto Married Ino Till Death, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Kiba sat in his desk not quite paying attention to the teacher at all. His mind was occupied with important things such as his best friend's problem. If Naruto really has fallen for Ino, then things are just going to end up in a heap of mess. I gotta help Naruto, he told himself, trying to psych himself as his head rested against his palm. This is so, but before he finished his sentence the word came from another source. Troublesome, the dark-haired man said as he gave off a sigh. Kiba turned to the side to see Naruto, who is one of the top of the ladder. Oh god, he thought to himself as he remembered that this guy and Ino are close friends. Hey Inuzuka, the ponytail man said lazily as his eyes landed on Kiba, the party wasn't bad. The way he said it seemed like it was the dullest party, but his words were different. Kiba stared at him for another second before a smirk appeared on his face. More to come, Kiba said as his smirk became a grin. Shikamaru just nodded before he placed his head onto the desk and fell asleep. Kiba looked up at the clock to see that there was still 20 minutes left. He slumped into his chair and wondered how he will be helping out Naruto. It was finally lunchtime and Naruto couldn't wait. This was probably the only time, besides morning and after school, that he'd be able to see Ino. He was the last to get out of class, and as he headed to his locker, he noticed there was a piece of paper taped to it. He walked in front of his locker so he could read the paper better. Hey loser, stay on your side or there will be consequences. Naruto turned around to see everyone staring at him with disdain and he couldn't help but felt a cold shiver run up his spine. You okay? Neji asked as he noticed Naruto looking as if he was frozen in place. The blonde just laughed nervously as he opened his locker. Who wrote that paper? The Hyuga asked, reading it with clear anger in his eyes. Naruto shrugged and closed his locker, walking out of the crowd of stares with Neji. So I heard you like Yamanaka, Neji said as he looked at his blonde friend who blushed a pink rosy color. You know this isn't good, right? He also added, causing Naruto to look at him. You liking her? Trouble will start. I don't care, Naruto said childishly as he crossed his arms. Neji looked at him for a small moment, wondering how this year was going to be. Freshman year was when the group was created: Neji, Gaara, Naruto, Kiba, and Lee. Sophomore year was when the bond was much closer and they seemed more like brothers. Junior year was the year that a whole lot of crap happened. Gaara and his girl broke up, Kiba became a partyholic, Neji and Lee always argued with one another, and Naruto was depressed. Geez, how they got over all that was a miracle, but now it's senior year and this trouble is happening. Why Yamanaka? Neji asked himself, holding in a sigh, knowing this year was going to be the worst. Neji, a voice called out, breaking his thought. The pale-eyed male turned to see another pair. Hinata, Neji stated, waiting for whatever she had to say. Naruto stared at her and turned his face away, not wanting to look at her. After all, she threw away their friendship. I will be staying over at Shino's house after school, she stated softly, looking to see the back of Naruto's head. She held in a sigh, knowing what she did was wrong. Okay then, I'll tell your father for you, he said as she nodded and walked off. Neji then turned to Naruto, who was looking down with a scowl on his face. Let's go meet up with everyone, he offered, and Naruto complied. Yo, over here, Kiba's voice boomed out of the cafeteria once he noticed Neji and Naruto. They headed over there to notice that the cafeteria has gone silent, and then whispers were heard as they walked by the tables. That's him, right? Yeah, he's cute, but not hot. Yeah, so why does Ino talks to him? Pity. Really? Has to be. Naruto couldn't help but let his head drop to the floor. Was what they are saying right? Was Ino only talking to him out of pity? That night, he was drunk, so maybe she thought he needed someone. Dude, finally, Kiba said, once again grinning. Oh, Naruto, I heard all about your youthful event a couple of days ago, Lee said happily as they took their seats. How was talking to someone youthful? Naruto asked, a bit confused. Ah, but you weren't just talking to anyone, you were able to have enough courage to approach her, and that is youthful. Lee exclaimed with a thumbs up, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Yeah, that's nice and all, but we seriously have a problem, Kiba said as he leaned in so they were the only one who heard. What's the problem, Kiba? Lee asked softly as their heads leaned in, almost like a huddle. Naruto is in love with Ino, Gaara stated matter-of-factly. Naruto blushed a bright red while everyone besides Lee nodded their heads. You love her? Lee asked, leaning closer to Naruto, who just turned a bit redder. Yosh! Lee exclaimed once again. Lee, stop it, would you? Kiba said tiredly as he rubbed his temples. Naruto, you cannot love her or even like her more than friends, Kiba advised, staring straight at the blonde. Do you hear me? Naruto, on the other hand, didn't hear a thing that his friend said because he was staring at the door to the cafeteria. She was walking through and everyone went silent again. His friends looked up to notice what, or more like who, had caught his attention. The blonde beauty was walking into the cafeteria with Shikamaru and Temari. Where'd you wanna sit? Temari asked as her fingers tangle with Shikamaru's. Ino looked around trying to find where Sai was, since he always saved him a spot. Let's go there, Shikamaru pointed lazily as he tilted his head toward Ino. She saw him pointing to an empty table and she grinned at him with a nod. All three headed to the table and sat beside one another. Hey Shikamaru, Temari began, are you going straight to college? Shikamaru shrugged and ate a piece of sandwich Ino brought for him. Ino began eating her sandwich as well, but soon stopped, noticing Temari storming out of the place. What happened? She asked, wide-eyed, staring at her figure. Who knows? Troublesome girl, Shikamaru said as he gave off a sigh. Ino turned to him and stared at him. He took another bite, trying to ignore her, but couldn't. What? He asked, confused. You know, Shika, you are troublesome, Ino said, shaking her head before taking another bite. Whatever, Shikamaru said before taking another bite as well as Ino. They ate in silence until they heard a voice. Dude, stop staring. The voice yelled, causing everyone to look at the owner of the voice. Ino and Shikamaru turned around to see blue eyes watching them. They caught me, Naruto told himself as he cursed his loud friend. He tore his gaze away from them with a deep crimson shade upon his face. He berated himself over and over as he ate his apple, trying to clear his thoughts. Previously. They caught me, Naruto told himself as he cursed his loud friend. He tore his gaze away from them with a deep crimson shade upon his face. He berated himself over and over as he ate his apple, trying to clear his thoughts. Hey guys, her voice greeted them, and Naruto wondered how come the voice was so close when they were 2 tables away. He looked up to see Ino standing right behind him with a smile and his face flushed beet red. She's so close, he thought, not able to look away. Ino. Another voice called out happily to see a girl with 2 buns. Ino waved at her and she stopped momentarily to see her friend at a table she shouldn't be at. Oh Tenten, Ino said, waving her hand softly as she walked toward her, noticing she wasn't going to continue her steps. Shikamaru followed behind and waited for the girl to continue. Oh Tenten begun to say but decided to ask the obvious, what were you doing there? She finished pointing at the guy's table. Just saying hi, why? Ino said obliviously with a smile as she turned to glance at the table, before turning back. But Ino, Tenten said, a bit worried as her hand reached up to touch her lips softly. Oi, so what did you want, Tenten? The pineapple head asked, bored. Tenten snapped her eyes toward him and nodded her head. Oh yes, Ino, look at this, she said, lifting up her hand to reveal a picture. A picture? Ino and Shikamaru asked, confused. Tenten nodded and was about to say something else when she noticed everyone silent. Let's talk about this outside, Tenten offered, walking toward the door as Shikamaru nodded while Ino stared at the picture more. They're leaving, Naruto murmured to himself, sadly watching Ino walk away, but he understood why. While they were talking, everyone fell silent, even himself, trying to stress their ears to hear anything from those lips. As their retreating figures reached the door, her scream was heard and echoed inside the building. What? Ino screamed so loud that Shikamaru hurriedly covered his ears along with Tenten, who was holding the door open. Geez woman, what the hell? Shikamaru was about to say, but Ino stared at him with wide eyes as her face became pink. She held the picture to him and looked away embarrassed as Tenten stared at her. Ino, it's just a picture. Tenten tried to console her friend when Ino glared at her. That is not just any picture. She screamed angrily as Tenten flinched a bit. Before Tenten was able to say anything, Shikamaru held up the picture to her and pointed at something that caused her face to flush red. How the hell did you get that? Ino demanded, voice booming across the walls. Tenten held the door open hurriedly as Shikamaru forced her out of the cafeteria so no one would spread anything terrible about the blonde. Wonder what happened, Kiba said, staring at the three people who just left momentarily. I wonder if Tenten did something to Ino, Naruto asked, looking at his friends. I don't think so, Neji said. She wouldn't do that to Yamanaka of all people. I agree, Gaara added, nodding his head slightly. Naruto nodded his head in agreement but couldn't forget the scream from Ino's lips that made him flinch and shiver unexpectedly. I hope she is okay, Naruto said to himself with a look of worry. Dude, you are hooked, Kiba said, worried and disappointed. I am not, Naruto said as he took another bite of his apple. Dude, Kiba said knowingly as his friends all stared at him with the same intention, to admit it. Whatever, he decided to say as he finished up the apple, knowing full well that he had just lied to them, even himself. While outside, I demand to know how you got this picture, Ino said through gritted teeth as they reached under the tree, glaring intently at her friend. Calm down, Ino, I don't think Tenten did this, Shikamaru said calmingly as he held the flaming-eyed blonde back. Yeah, Ino, I wouldn't do this, Tenten said, assuring her the truth was that, I got the picture in my locker. Ino stared at her a moment longer before she calmed down a bit as Shikamaru let her go. Sorry, Ino said with a small smile, but who the hell would do that? Someone who takes you as a threat, Shikamaru said thoughtfully, staring at the two girls who waited for a longer explanation, or someone who hates you. But, Tenten had said, who would hate Ino? She asked, confused as Ino's face blanched and her head hung. Everyone, she spoke softly as she lifts her head to look up into the sky. She took a couple deep breaths before looking at the picture again. It was hard to tell what was in the picture since it looked blurry, but the color of blonde stuck out. She could see her skin thanks to the less amount of clothing she was wearing, which she regretted. The picture brought back an event that she never wanted to relive. Past. You're so beautiful, the man said softly in between kisses. Ino smiled and a small giggle escaped her lips. Her stomach had knots and butterflies swarming all over and she felt like she was overheating from the boil in her blood. Do you mean it? She asked softly as he moved his lips to graze and suck her N. He didn't answer back and continued his rampage on her N. His hands moved down her shoulders to her hand and rested on her stomach. She was tingling with every kiss, every touch, and she felt like melting into him. She couldn't even keep her eyes open for the sensational pleasure was overriding her conscience. His hands unbuttoned her blouse and before she knew it her shirt was off. End past. You think it's him? Shikamaru had asked, breaking her past memory. He had been observing her, seeing that her eyes were glazed with hurt and regret. He knew what had happened that night and he, as her best friend, wanted to go over to that bastard's house and him to shreds so badly, but consoling Ino was more important. Tenten looked at the two and wondered what was going on, but didn't interrupt. Ino shook her head as she looked over at her long-time friend. She walked over to Tenten and embraced her into a hug. Tenten was a bit startled but hugged back comfortingly. Ino knew when she accused her friend that it was stupid and in front of everyone of all times. I'm sorry, she said softly, pulling away from the brunette. Did I embarrass you? Tenten could hear the regret and worry in the blonde's voice and she couldn't help but gave a soft smile. It's okay, I'm sorry I brought that picture up, Tenten said softly, looking at the picture in Ino's possession at the moment. Shikamaru stared at the two before looking up to the sky and then the sun, noticing that the bell will ring soon. If you don't think it's him, the pineapple head said softly, who do you think it is? Ino looked at him and noticed the worried lines and angry eyes, though they were well hidden. It wasn't that he was mad at her, it was that he has no idea who it could be. Everyone is a suspect and they can't count anyone out. Ring. Ring. Let's head to class, Shikamaru said as he turned around. We'll talk about this later. The two girls nodded their head in silence while Tenten placed a comforting arm around Ino's shoulders. Everything will be okay, she whispered softly, but in her heart she felt like it was a lie. I just hope whoever did this is only doing this as a joke, Tenten hoped, looking worriedly at the blonde who was lost in her own thoughts. I just hope whoever did this is only doing this as a joke, Tenten hoped, looking worriedly at the blonde who was lost in her own thoughts. Finally, Kiba exclaimed exhaustedly as he walked out of the school building with Naruto in tow. The whole day had started weird and ended even weirder. He looked toward his friend who had been quiet for the rest of the day since the commotion during lunch. He is so in love, Kiba thought sadly as he gave off a huge sigh that startled a couple of students who were passing by. Kiba, his voice was low, causing the brunette to turn sharply to face him. They stopped and he waited for the blonde to continue, wondering what is going on inside that head of his. Do you think? Naruto started off, but then stopped as he tried to put his thoughts into words. No, Kiba had said quickly, causing Naruto to look at him in disbelief. I didn't even finish, he murmured angrily while Kiba just continued walking. It's obvious what you were going to say, Kiba said, annoyed while Naruto stared. You wanted to know about Ino, right? Naruto just looked away, hiding the blush that was starting to form. The blonde cursed himself for getting like that all the time, when he's around her, sees her, and even hears her name. But then again he couldn't help himself. She's like an angel with those beautiful blue eyes that can see through his soul and that long blonde hair that looks silky to the touch. Then again she was also human with emotions of loneliness and anger. She is so beautiful in every way to him that he wonders if his friends could write what he sees, perfection. So you coming? What? Naruto stumbled, wondering what his friend just said. Kiba stared at him in disbelief. Had he been zoning out again? He could feel his anger revealing itself as he felt the steam from his ears. He couldn't believe he was zoned out. Naruto, Kiba seethed out angrily as he glared at the blonde, you had no idea what I said, did you? Naruto backed up slowly away from the fierce Kiba with fangs. His hands were in front of him to defend himself, and as he kept backing up, he fell spinning over a book on the floor. Ah! He screamed before his butt hit the floor and his back afterwards, along with the back of his head. Naruto automatically reached his hand to feel the back of his head. Ow! He said softly, wincing as his fingers traced the bump forming. Hey, you okay? A girl said from behind, running over to him. When Naruto turned around to see who it was, she automatically froze. Yeah, I think so, Naruto said softly, staring at the wide-eyed girl. Why is she just staring at me? Naruto asked himself, confused as his hand fell back onto his knee. The two stared at one another for a long time, both with different reasons, one with recognition and the other with confusion. Naru, but before the girl could finish, Kiba interrupted her. Hey, he said a bit rash, are you just gonna keep staring at him? The girl cut her eyes off of the blonde to stare at the brunette. Not him too, the girl said to herself before turning back around and walking away. Rude, don't ya think? Kiba asked sarcastically with a hint of resentment. He looked down at Naruto, who kept staring at the figure. Hey, you like her now or what? Kiba asked, interested as Naruto still sat on the floor. Nah, it's just. Naruto didn't know, but the girl looked oddly familiar to him, just looks familiar, that's all, he finished, grinning at his long-time bud. Kiba looked toward the girl once again before she disappeared from view and knew exactly what Naruto was talking about. Her hair was a dark maroon and her eyes were the exact same shade, her face looks, but before Kiba could finish his thoughts, he heard an all-too-familiar voice now. Naruto? She asked, looking wide-eyed at the man on the floor. She was standing only a few feet away from him with Tenten and Shino. Naruto looked up and blushed so bright that he could feel his face burning hotter than the sun. Are you okay? She asked, giggling in between as she walked closer, kneeling down beside him. She lifts her hand and gently touches his forehead, cooling it off in the process. He couldn't help but smile at her, noticing the worried look cross her beautiful sky-blue eyes. I'm okay, he whispered softly, and she smiled at him. Are you sure? She asked, playfully laughing as the blonde's smile twitched. She stood up and offered a hand for Naruto, who took it gladly. When he stood, he felt a small pain in his head that caused him to go off balance and fell onto Ino. His breath hitched and he thought he couldn't breathe as his body pressed against hers. He could feel the worried eyes of Kiba's and the confused eyes of her friends, but he couldn't find the strength to pull back. He could smell her and feel the long strands of her golden hair tickle his skin. His hands twitched, wanting to hold her. She is so close that he just wanted to melt into her. I guess you weren't okay after all, her voice whispered softly into his ears, making him shiver with excitement, though it was short. He couldn't help but chuckle nervously as his eyes closed automatically from the comfort of her smell. Ino, Shino had said, breaking his little daydream, should we be going? His glasses hid where he was looking at exactly, but Naruto could feel the glare from him. Ino asked innocently as Naruto slowly pushed himself off her to stand in front. He was looking down to see her hands. Her soft hands free of anything. He wanted to entwine his hands with hers and touch the delicately softness of it. I guess we should, but, Ino began to say, turning to look at her two friends, maybe we should return the book first. She finished picking up the book that Naruto unfortunately fell over with. A dictionary, Tenten had said, confused as Ino stared at it with the same look. It was big and bulky, no wonder Naruto fell over it. You fell over a dictionary. Kiba exclaimed loudly, trying to hold in his laughter. Yeah, so. Naruto shouted back angrily, noticing the teary-eyed brunette whose face was turning a slight red. Nah, nothing, Kiba said, shaking his head left and right, noticing Naruto's glare, and that was the last straw. He bellowed his laugh. Ah, ha ha, sorry. Ha ha ha. Kiba couldn't help himself, remembering a past when they were kids and something like this happened. Call it déjà vu. Why is he laughing? Ino asked, looking at the blonde beside her. Probably brought back a memory, Naruto murmured, eyebrows furrowed. Must be funny, Tenten had said more to herself than anyone. Let's bring the book to the lost and found since this dictionary isn't from the library, Shino had said, causing Kiba's laughter to calm. I guess that's a good idea, huh, Ino? Tenten said, looking toward her blonde friend. Ino didn't look at her, nor did she look at anyone else, since her eyes had caught someone all too familiar. Ino? Tenten had asked again softly, noticing the way her friend's face became rigid and her body posture tensed. Shino also noticed this, as well as the rest of the guys, and traveled their eyes to meet where hers were currently occupied at. He had short spiked dark navy blue hair with a few piercing on one ear and a pin LD through his bottom lip. His shirt was black with bright graphite designs on it and jeans that looked almost made just for him. Yo, Ino, he said, smirking at the blonde who caught his hazel eyes. Ino calmed herself and forced a smile back. Hey, she said, not wanting to say his name. She never thought she'd see him again, and at this moment, she just wanted to run away. Are you out? I'll drive you home, that okay? He asked, smiling at her and ignoring the stares surrounding them. Actually, I'm heading somewhere with my friends, she said, high-fiving herself mentally. She can't be near him, not yet. Naruto noticed Ino's smile twitched into a grin, then a frown, as she spoke to the navy-haired male. Naruto couldn't stop his fist from clenching so hard that his knuckles became white. He couldn't help himself when his teeth started to grind against each other. He couldn't help himself as anger overtook him, and he couldn't help himself when they walked away together. So I'll drop you three off then, the outsider said, walking away with the others. Well, I guess, Ino said almost nervously as Tenten and Shino walked near them, eyeing the male suspiciously. Naruto stared at her retreating figure as it left his presence. She was so close, yet now so far. He knew it was wishful thinking, but if she returned his feelings, then they'd be perfect, just like how she already is. Yo, you okay? Kiba asked, noticing the saddened eye and depressed aura around his friend. Naruto gave off a sigh before placing a small smile, reassuring Kiba that he'd be fine. They started walking away when they heard the angelic voice of his crush again. Hey Kiba, Naruto, Ino said as the car stopped beside them. Her window was rolled down where the passenger sat and her smile was beaming at the two. Ino, Kiba said, almost like a question of, what the hell? In confusion. You two need a lift? She asked, seeing the shock in their eyes, and she couldn't help but smile wider. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.